being left-handed a glitch or a secret advantage? The answer lies in your skull. So in this video I will explain the effects of handedness on the brain, why it stays stable across populations, and finally we take a look at the role of brain development on handedness. So from one left-hander to another, well, let's go. Hi there, I'm Yvette, a neuroscientist and an author of several neuroscience studies. On this channel, I explore how the brain works, decode its mysteries, but most importantly, how you can think better in a world shaped by AI and tech. So, if you want a sharper mind and fewer blind spots, you are in the right place. Try to sign your name with your other hand. It feels wrong, doesn't it? Somehow when you do this, your brain and your hand feel like they are not working together. And this is because handedness is not a skill. It forms early in fetal development and shows how your brain is set up. If you are right-handed, the left motor cortex drives most of the movement, and about 95% of right-handers also have their language on the left side. Whereas, on the other hand, and pun intended here, left-handers show more variation, because only about 70% have their language on the left. Well, half of the rest have it on the right, and the other half use both sides. Well, and this pattern shows that there is a different layout in brains of left-handed people. Large imaging studies show group differences in how left and right-handers organize their brain architecture. The differences are small, but they appear across thousands of scans, and these differences lead to different cognitive strategies. Right-handers often use a more lateralized system, meaning that often a task is localized in one hemisphere. But left-handers use more mixed patterns. Well, neither is better, you know. None of them are superior from the other, but both solve the same task, however differently. The brain builds the solution that works for each person. Some studies link left-handedness with flexible problem solving, and some link it with different approaches to tasks that need novel thinking. These findings vary, and the effects are modest, but they point to a simple fact. People with different wiring use different paths to reach the same result. This sets up the real mystery. If brains build these layouts in many ways, why do we see the same percentage of left-handers across modern populations? That takes us to the next part. Across modern populations, about 10% of people are left-handed. This is seen in Europe, Asia, Africa, and North and South America. Different cultures, different environments, however, the same ratio. Older data from ancient groups exist, and although these samples are small, they also indicate the same percentage, 10%. And this was deduced from tool marks, cave art, and also skeletal patterns. Some of these findings show a similar ratio, and this is perplexing because there are only a few ratios that stay constant through time and cultures. In fact, researchers have proposed several explanations for why 10% is a fixed number for humans. The first is the fighting hypothesis. Left-handers may have an advantage in direct combat because opponents do not expect a left-handed attack. Modern sports show a similar pattern in baseball and fencing, where the population of left-handers is significantly higher than the normal general population. This is interesting, but it does not explain the current ratio, because human violence has declined, but the number of left-handers has not. Another idea points to birth complications. This claims that early stress during birth shifts brain development towards left-hand use. However, modern obstetrics has reduced these risks, but again the ratio has not changed. Another hypothesis is that cultural suppression affected rates in the past. When strict switching ended, the number of reported left-handers rose. However, it then stabilized to 10%. Even in countries with full acceptance, the number stays near 10%. So, as you can see, these environmental and cultural explanations do not account for the full pattern. And so, let's turn to genetics and see if it gives a better answer. Large studies show that handedness is influenced by many genes. Each gene has a small effect, and together they shape the bias towards right-handedness. But genetics alone is not the full picture, because even though identical twins share the same DNA, yet they match in handedness only about 70% of the time. This shows that developmental variation also plays a role. Small random events during early brain formation influence which hand becomes dominant. The combination of many genes and early variation produces a stable outcome across populations. A strong bias towards right-handedness with a consistent minority of left-handers. So human groups appear to maintain both patterns. But the ratio is not the same for men and women. Men are more likely to be left-handed than women. And well, even though this is a small difference, it opens another question. Men show higher rates of left-handedness than women. The difference is small but consistent across populations. This follows a larger trend in developmental data. Autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and other conditions appear more often in males. These conditions involve differences in brain development and lateralization, which is the use of hemispheres. Male fetal development carries more risk, as they have higher premature births and more low-weight births. The reason is thought to be biological. Females have 2 X chromosomes, whereas males have 1. The X chromosome carries many genes that guide brain growth. With 2 copies, females have genetic redundancy. So, if one copy has a harmful variant, the other can support normal development in many cells, while males do not have this redundancy. If the single X has a variant that affects development, all cells are affected. Other biological factors add to this sensitivity. Studies on placentas show that male placentas react more strongly to stress. Male fetuses also grow faster, which increases metabolic demand. So, any disruption during development has a larger effect. These factors raise the chance of small changes in how the brain sets itself up, right and left side. This includes handedness. Researchers think that both genetic influences and early developmental factors help explain why men show higher left-handed rates. In fact, men show wider distributions in many traits, and in biological terms, this increases both risk but also potential. So, the story of handedness is a story about variation. The brain builds different solutions. Human groups preserve them. And these patterns appear in other areas of life as well. For example, did you know that the brain during pregnancy is heavily restructured? Well, in this video here, I look at how pregnancy changes brain structure and rewires connectivity. And with this, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!